Welcome to the Stanley Cup edition of the Aiming Five Hole podcast, and congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes.
All right, Canes. After
And
the Canadians
hold
lost
on,
to them,
and
that
on
was my
behalf,
team.
yeah, and on behalf of every Toronto Maple Leaf fan, thank you to Carolina. Thank you very much. Goodbye, Mitch Marner. We're now completely done with you.
And Carter Hart and Brett
Carter
Houghton.
Hart. It's just, hey, what a game. What a game by Carolina tonight. Holy cow.
That's what we've come to kind of expect from them, isn't it? Like
That was a
they
classic Carolina smothering, offensive barrage, just smothering game.
yeah,
Just
they just gave
relentless.
them no room to move.
No,
No room to move.
none.
And then in the third period, they just stood up at the blue line and just wouldn't let them by. And when they did get by, they did get shots on goal. Brandon Bussey,
And
he did what he had to do.
how about Bussy coming into the playoffs in game 3 came in. Um, Stone Marner on a penalty shot, played well. They ended up losing in overtime in that game, but then just stonewalled them for 3 straight games.
Yeah.
First goaltender in NHL history to have his first 3 playoff starts in the Stanley Cup and win all 3 of them. How
Good for
about that?
him. Good
Wow.
for him. It's cool
What
to see his family
amazing.
in the stands
Yeah,
tonight,
and
just
you
enjoying the
get
moment.
yeah, and you got to feel a little bit for Freddie because I'm sure he'll come out. We have a friend inside Carolina, a little bit with some knowledge, and it sounds like he had a bit of a concussion on that play in
Oh,
game 3 where he got hit in the head. So, which is why he was not dressed for games 4 and 5. Apparently could have played tonight, but Bussy was just playing too well. They weren't going to put him in, and they made him
yeah.
the bug because I don't think he was quite right. And even Brenda Moore in the interview afterwards said he was nicked up. So I'm sure it'll come out in the next couple of days that he had a concussion.
Yeah.
So
Well, the good news about that, I'd say, is it's a good thing he didn't play, especially with concussions. You could try to race back in the playoffs and stuff like that. But he was healthy enough that he could travel with the team.
yeah,
And so he's enjoying the celebration with his teammates
yeah,
tonight. It would have been awful if he had been not cleared to fly and he'd been stuck in Carolina, not being
yeah,
able
no
to
question.
join in this.
And it was nice of Stahl. He was the first player that he handed the cup to. So Stahl handed it to Freddie, which was very nice. And look at he's an ex-Leaf. I don't have any animosity towards Freddie. He didn't play great for us in the playoffs, but we let him go. We traded him. We didn't sign him, which I thought at the time was a bit of a mistake. But he has trouble staying healthy.
Mhm.
But Mitch Marner. Let's talk a little bit about our buddy Mitch Marner.
Yeah, a lot of people would argue who are Carolina fans and Toronto Maple Leafs fans that maybe Marner should have won the Conn Smythe because the last couple of games he kind of played for the Hurricanes, you
Yeah,
might say.
yeah. Well, let's just go through his stats. Now he had a great playoff up until Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoff
Yeah,
of
he
the
was
final.
amazing. He
He had a
was he
great
was the
playoffs.
prohibitive Conn Smythe favorite
Yeah, and if we
going through
had
game
seen that
four.
in Toronto, maybe things would have been different. But let's go through his stats in the Stanley Cup final.
Yep.
Games 1 through 3, 3 goals, 7 points, and a +4. Games 3 through 6, 0 goals, 1 point, -4, an own goal, and several giveaways and turtles. So the real Mitch Marner showed up right when we needed him
Yep.
to.
At Turtles, and then on the empty net goal tonight, one as our good pal Don Cherry used to say, one flamingo.
A little flamingo.
He lifted his leg to avoid
Yeah,
blocking the shot that was
that
the
would be the
empty
real
net
Mitch
goal.
Marner standing up and noticing himself. So we can be done with that chapter in our lives. He didn't win this year. So thankfully, because we would have heard about it for a little while if he had.
So let me ask you this: like, if he had, let's say Vegas wins next year or the year after that, would that sting a little bit less than if he had won it this year?
Yes.
Because it's
Yeah.
the first year.
Yeah. It
Okay.
will sting less. I still won't like it, but it'll sting less. And
Okay.
yeah, it'll sting less. And I don't think they will. They've got a fairly old team. They're gonna have to make some changes. Um, they just looked tired. And let's also remind everybody too is that to get to the Cup final, Carolina only had to play 13 games. So they
Hmm.
tonight they looked in the last three games they looked much more
Much
well
fresher.
rested and much fresher than the Knights. And when they started smothering them tonight, that was just evident. And I think actually I give it to Ferrero. He actually mentioned it. He goes, "Tired body makes for bad making bad decisions and bad mistakes," and they started making them tonight. The
Oh, well,
Knights, they
I mean, I knew the game was pretty much over going into the third period, but when Seth Jarvis walked Shea Theodore, like literally just went around him and got a shot on net with about, oh God, I want somewhere around 10 minutes left
yeah
in the third, you knew that it was over. Like Vegas just didn't have the gas.
no
And even then, they still had, especially with that power play opportunity, they had chances,
yeah
especially Eichel hitting that crossbar with, a foot and a half of net just
right
staring at him.
yeah.
Unbelievable. But
Well,
hey,
forget about even just the games in this Stanley Cup, and I think we've talked about it at nauseum to some degree, but it's worth talking about again. The last two seasons has been an endurance test for some of these players, a lot of these players that played in the Four Nations, that
yeah,
played in the Olympics, that went through the Stanley Cup run last year, through the Stanley Cup run last year, whether you made it to the Cup final or not, but you made it into the playoffs, you played two, three rounds, whatever, into the playoffs. It's a lot of hockey. I think
hmm,
these players have to be thanking their stars or whatever that there is nothing next year because we'll have a more regular season. They're going to do something different. They're going to do a multi-nation three-on-three tournament for the All-Star game, but it won't be the who cares? Yeah, but I'm just talking about it more from it won't be extra games. It won't be
yeah,
the same level of hockey. It'll be something that's fun. Won't be as intense for the players. They need a break. And I think you and I talked about it is that I think going forward, they have to rethink the years where they have either Four Nations or Olympic hockey or something else, that they need to start the season earlier so that they can give players their normal rest throughout the season
right.
to make up for the 2 or 3 week break for whatever it's going to be so that they're not just they were tired and you can see it and whatnot. It just wears them down and the injuries, and we've talked about the injuries over the last couple of years of tired players just doesn't make for great hockey.
Hmm.
And so, but I think they need to look at something to do something different in those years so that they can give players their normal rest through the season and not just jam the 82 game schedule in
I
over a
agree.
similar time.
I agree. But by the way, you mentioned health. I mean, the commentators tonight also made a point of mentioning how healthy Carolina has been throughout the playoffs.
Yes.
I mean, aside from this Freddie concussion, um, it's amazing how healthy they were able to stay,
Yeah.
given the brand of hockey they play. And speaking of the brand of hockey they play, every year when a new team wins the Stanley Cup, somebody the uh, brings up the old expression: imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and it's a copycat league. But let me ponder whether or not the Carolina way of playing is that easy to copy. And that's because it's taken Rod Brindamore the better part of what, 8, 9 years with this
Yeah. They
team.
be knocking on the door year after year after year and just haven't gotten through.
Yeah. And given the brand of hockey that they play, does it only work when you breeze through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs? Can
Maybe.
that can that brand of hockey be successful through, say, 3 7 game series?
Hasn't been to this
Right?
point, right? So
Exactly.
maybe that is the recipe, right? Breeze through whether you're going to sweep your first two rounds of the playoffs and win in one, but not having to go seven. And there wasn't a lot of 7 game series this season. There was only two, and Montreal played in both of them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
no
they
other
are
series
resting.
went seven other than those two. And by the way, I called Carolina in six, so thank you.
Congratulations.
It's the only thing we got,
Congratulations.
one of the few things we got this year right in the playoffs. But we'll take it.
Well, I called them in the final.
Yeah, you did.
I
You
had
did.
Dallas beating them in the final. So at
Yes.
least I called them in the final. But yeah,
Um,
we were terrible this year.
yeah,
Terrible this
yeah,
year. We should
yeah.
state unequivocally for the record that our predictions this year were brutal.
Yes, but we said,
Preseason, preseason and postseason.
well, we said it. We're not experts. We're not hockey
No,
gurus. We're
yeah,
just
but
two.
a stop clock is right twice a
Yeah.
day. We didn't even do that well.
Well, we're just having fun doing it our way, so it's all good. And hey,
Yeah.
congratulations to Jordan Stahl, oldest winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy for the playoff MVP. Good on him. First player since Jean Beliveau in what I think it was 56 to score in the first 5 games of the Stanley Cup Final. Had some glorious chances tonight to do 6.
Yeah.
But congratulations to him, his second Stanley Cup after winning one in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, he
So
had
good for
12
him.
points in 19 games and won the Conn Smythe, and deservedly so. I think
Yes.
it speaks enormously to the type of leader and the type of player he is
Yeah.
offensively, defensively. All the goals he scored were huge goals. Like there was
Oh,
no garbage there. They were all massive, massive, important
some
goals.
great tips. He had his hand-eye coordination, and then he did it defensively. He shut down Eichel in this cup final. He shut
Yeah.
down that line. He was in charge of ensuring that the biggest line on Vegas was not seen. And other than Marner's big game in game 3, he wasn't they weren't seen.
hmm Well,
Yeah.
I think he did an amazing job on Eichel. I think the posts did a phenomenal job on
Like
Eichel
I
as
said to you
well.
before we went on air, a goaltender will tell you when you hit the post, it's called good positioning.
Yeah, well, yeah, goaltenders will tell you a lot of things. That's not always true.
Yeah, and I'll say too, the other thing that, you said it a few minutes ago, the brand of hockey, this brand of hockey, and both played a similar game in terms of that dump the puck out, chase, try to be heavy on the forecheck. Um, but it might not have been the best played series in the world in terms of
It's fire wagon hockey at
but it was
times.
but it was exciting. It was fantastic. It was fun to watch. More goals in the first 3 or 4 games of this series than anybody would have expected with these two teams on the ice.
hmm
It was just an incredible fun series to watch. The right team won it, thankfully.
hmm
And we can go on with our lives.
Yeah. Could you have made an argument that Taylor Hall should have won the Conn Smythe?
Um, I, he obviously had to be in the running, but I think you said it. Jordan Stahl just scored some key goals. And he played great in his own end, and then he was 70% in faceoff circle in the final.
That's crazy.
It's
That's
just
just
amazing, right? So
that
you
never
send him out
happens.
there in key moments, you knew you were going to get possession of the puck. It's great for Taylor Hall to win the cup after so many tries. And I think he's played for 7 or 8 or 9 teams or something like that in his
Yeah.
career. Um, and the longest streak of a first overall pick to win the Stanley Cup. In terms of somebody a first overall pick to win a Stanley Cup, it took him the longest to do it.
Right.
Obviously, there's some that have never won one, but it took him the longest. So congratulations to Taylor Hall on a
Yeah, good
great
for
career.
him.
And look at, I think you said it a few episodes ago. He was on a prove me contract when he came to Carolina, and he proved it. And I think
Yeah.
something else Ray Ferraro said tonight was Carolina doesn't trade for players or sign players that don't fit their system. They look for players to fit that system, and he fits that system, and he played within that system. So
Yeah.
good for him. He's got 2 more years on that contract, and it'll look good for him. So
Yeah, and you know what? Carolina's they look like they're going to be good for a while. I mean,
yeah.
they've got some young kids. Nikishin's a rookie. This Blake kid, you know, I hated his father. Jason Blake was a pain in the ass. He was so fast and just a pest when he
Yeah.
played for Carolina. And his son has a bright future ahead of him.
Well, that
They're
line,
yeah,
Stankoven, him,
Stankoven's yeah. I mean, look,
Hall's
query
older,
whether or
obviously, but
not query whether or not Stan Coven is the long-term solution at center on the second line. I think
probably not.
he may end up being a winger before all is said and done, which means they're probably looking to upgrade at center. Uh, but they've got so many assets they could trade for. If they were to pick up another fast center that plays well within their system,
Yeah.
Somebody like, oh, I don't know, Dylan Larkin. Like they could be
Yeah.
unstoppable.
Yeah. They could be
Um,
could be good. Could be good.
yeah,
But it's great. Well, it closes the door, I think, on the Stanley Cup Final.
yep,
Toronto fans can move on with our lives knowing Mitch
yeah.
Marner should have accepted the trade to Carolina.
Close that book.
He could. I was
You
gonna
can
say
move it
he could
over.
have. Mitch Marner could have be a Stanley Cup Final winner right now if he accepted the trade to Carolina.
That's
I'll
true.
just leave it right there. Okay, cool. Congratulations, Carolina Hurricanes, deserved Stanley Cup champion. Um, where do you want to go next? You want to talk about Babcock? You want to talk about
Well, normally
Laviolette?
what would happen,
Where do we go here?
all right. Well, normally what would happen in a situation like this is you take a few minutes to, talk about the runner-up team and what their challenges are to get back to the Stanley Cup final.
Mm,
I don't want to do that. I
no,
don't really like Vegas. I don't
no.
care about Vegas. Good riddance to them. Good riddance to Marner. Good riddance to Tortorella, who says, I guess he's not coming back or whatever. This was just a one-time deal.
Yeah, well, they got
Like,
and I forget his name, the coach of their AHL affiliate who's ready to come up. They just
eh,
didn't want to drag him up with 8 games to go, so
don't care.
don't care. Move
Don't
on.
care. It's Vegas. Okay. What do we got to next? Let's talk about Babcock because this is
What a
a
circus in Edmonton right now.
yeah. Yeah. So just to recap for everybody, um, Edmonton was trying to be mum on their coaching situation, and they asked for permission to speak to Vegas about Bruce Cassidy, and Vegas said, "Go pound sand," and somehow that got leaked. Now, whether it was on the Vegas side, which would have been really funny, or on the Edmonton side,
Well, they're blaming Edmonton, but yeah, who
yeah,
knows?
which is pretty crappy. Then they put Knobloch in it's a no-win situation, right? You've got to fire the guy. If you're talking about bringing somebody else in, now the room is gone. Without even having him talk to the room is gone. So he's got to go, and they fire him without a plan B. So who's plan B but Mike Babcock, who got hired by Columbus? I don't remember what year it was.
Uh,
Was it 20?
3 years ago,
Yeah,
3 years
22 maybe.
ago,
I don't
something
know.
like that. Can't remember.
And Mike Babcock doesn't even make it to preseason. He's hired. He gets called out for, asking players to show him the photos on their cell phones, presumably for some sort of psychological leverage or some sort of power move. And John Davidson, who showed ridiculously poor judgment in hiring him in the first place, woke up, developed some good judgment, and said, yeah, this was a mistake, and hired somebody
Well,
else.
but that's not all for you're also skipping a piece that when he left Toronto, it came out of his what he was doing, and he was doing that in Toronto as well. He was fired in Toronto, and it came out that he was asking players to call out
Other
other
players.
players on questions he would ask him, saying, "Who's the laziest player? Who does this? Who does that?" And then he would go into the room and say, Mitch Marner called out Kadri for being a lazy player and said it in a room with the other players.
And Marner was
Yeah.
a rookie at the time. So yes,
It's
so
just crazy.
Babcock is Babcock is just a terrible, terrible, terrible hire in for two reasons. Number one, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup in 67 years, as far as I know. Number two, he he isn't built to win in the new NHL. Like you have to have a completely different relationship with your players now than
Well, they
you
have to
did when
trust
he was
you.
successful. Yeah,
They have to trust you.
exactly. They have to trust you. And um, the problem with the problem with Babcock now is that the Edmonton Oilers are a very top heavy team. And yeah, he could have Draisaitl and McDavid, you know, going through a wall for him. But if that kind of coach typically destroys the confidence and the egos of, the younger players on the team or the third and fourth line players of the team. And that's the part of the team that you most
Right.
need to step up to have some success in the
Right.
regular season and playoffs. At least,
Right. Well,
now this team is sort of broken from start of the season to the end of the season. Babcock is definitely not the right guy to
no,
take that
and
job.
that's the knock on him is that he coddles the top end players and treats them well, and the bottom end players, let's just say what it is, he's an ass.
Yeah.
And there's guys around the league, if you listen to them, just can't stand him. People that have played for him call him a terrible human being. However, on the other side of things, you listen to some of the experts, and they would say, I understand all the problems on that side, and they don't comment on that. They agree that some of that stuff he's done is highly questionable. But in terms of hockey knowledge and X's and O's, they say he's a great coach. And yeah, he won a Stanley Cup. It's been a lot of years since he won in Detroit. He's won a gold medal. He's won at the World. He's won at all the different levels and whatnot. But I just think there's too much noise around him. If they come out and start a season and poor season with him, what happens? What happens?
Well,
And
by the way, just to bring it around again, the team he took over in Toronto is not unlike the team in Edmonton he would be taking over. A very top heavy team with a couple of the best players in the league, with a lot of pressure to win.
yeah.
It's almost the identical situation. And you could not say in any respect that his time in Toronto was successful in any way whatsoever.
Well, you can say that the difference would be is that Toronto, when he took them over, is Marner, Matthews, and Nylander were fairly early. They was in their second or third season or something like that. So he took these young guys and had them young and impressionable at that point. So yes, the difference in Edmonton is that these guys are closing out their end of their window, right?
Yeah.
McDavid's not old by any means, but the
No, he's
but the team
29.
and the team in general, has been good for a while now, and you would say you're going to have to retool to some degree. Um, and look at, you listen to what's going on too. You hear that Draisaitl and McDavid are in agreement with this, and obviously the team and Bowman had to go to them and say, "Would you
Yeah.
accept this as a choice?" And obviously, if they had said no, it wouldn't be happening. But again, to your point, he coddles the higher end players. So yeah, he's saying all the right things to McDavid and Draisaitl, and apparently Hyman is because Hyman was on the Leafs when Babcock was in Toronto, and Babcock loved Hyman. So Hyman apparently is pushing this as well and whatnot. And say this is the guy who can help us. He can get us disciplined. He can get us on the right track and whatnot. So who knows? I just think it could be a recipe for disaster. But
So, quick question then.
well,
If they hire Babcock, what is the percentage chance, in your estimation, that Connor McDavid is wearing an Edmonton Oilers jersey on the first day of the 27-28 season?
oh, I think 100%. 100%.
Really?
Because I
Okay.
think he's the one he's buying into this and he's agreeing to it. However, I think there's a wrinkle in all of this that we haven't mentioned. There is an ongoing investigation because the reason he stepped away from Columbus and didn't one of the reasons he stepped away from Columbus, other than Davidson having a his
Brain fart.
conscious come brain fart come around as conscious, is that the league was going to investigate it and he agreed to step away and they stopped the investigation. So
Right.
nothing came out of what was. So we're going to hear, if this goes forward, we're going to hear what happened and get
Yeah.
all the information. The other wrinkle is the Stanley Cup playoffs just ended tonight. Tomorrow, Cassidy might become available. The Knights might say, and the league is being nice to the Knights right now, saying, "Do your thing. You're in the Stanley Cup final. We won't bug you about not releasing Cassidy." But tomorrow they're knocking on their door to say,
Right.
because Cassidy's been very vocal, is saying, "I want to coach. I want to do something here. I don't want to take a year off." So yes, the way the contracts goes and the payments and stuff and all that stuff, Vegas has his rights. Yes, but the league isn't going to let him not work, right? So I think tomorrow or sometime this week, Cassidy becomes available.
Mhm.
And is the Babcock thing a bit of smoke and mirrors to get Cassidy freed up?
It's not a terrible theory. Uh, it remains to be seen if that carries much water. But yeah, things are going to get messy in Edmonton. And if they hire Babcock and they miss the playoffs again next year, I wouldn't be surprised if McDavid drives his way out of town before they started the
He
27,
might.
28 season. And I would
He
give
drives
that,
himself.
I'm going to give it 35%. I'd say
Yeah, I don't think it's that
35% he's
high.
not an
If I have to put a
Oiler.
spread,
And
I'm going to say it's 10%. I don't see it happening.
okay.
Look, they got a lot of things to fix in Edmonton, goaltending, defense. Nurse now has asked for a trade
Yes.
out of town. Not that they didn't have him on the block. I think the interesting thing is um, Darren Dreger was on one of the shows the other day, and they asked him what is the interest level in the league right now for Darnell Nurse, and he said the best way I can put it is crickets, meaning just nobody was interested in. I think the only way you got to think of this guy Nurse who is a, you know, again I put him in the Riley camp. He's a good defenseman, but he needs a change of scenery. Maybe that'll help his game, get him his game back. But at $9.5 million in AAV with several years left on that contract, no one's taking him on unless you're eating half
Yeah.
of that,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to be a tough move to get him out, and they're going to have to eat some of that contract coming back, or they're going to have to take a bad contract on the other side.
I think
So
you have to do both. I think you have to do both. Darnell
yeah,
Nurse cannot play up to a $9 million contract at this
not
point in his
anymore.
career.
Not anymore.
So they're going to have to take salary back.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
they're gonna have to keep some salary to get rid of him,
yeah,
which is tough for a team that's so strapped with the cap
yeah,
situation anyway.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So
but what's with all of these teams? And we should talk about this. Although I don't want to belabor the like, do the Southern teams have an unfair advantage? The tax-free states, blah 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 blah. We've had that conversation. I'm not interested in having it anymore.
no.
But what is with all of these guys who have like limited or full no movement clauses, demanding trades and saying, I only want to go to Dallas,
Yeah.
Vegas, or Florida?
Yeah. Yeah, well, like Dylan Larkin, if you're pointing out, he's
And
asked to go to the
Darnell Nurse.
Wild, Florida, or Vegas. Yeah, guess what?
Yeah.
Because they're all in their cup winning windows and they're winning teams. So, but yeah, it's BS. And I like Steve Yzerman going back to Larkin's camp, going, you got to open up if you want out. You got to widen your team because you can't be held hostage. And by the way, Vegas and Florida would have to dump salary in order to fit in Larkin's
A
salary. I don't
lot of
know where
salary. Yeah.
Minnesota is on the salary cap issue, but those three teams can't have a lot of room because they just added a lot of salary this year.
Well, they've got to
And we know
resign.
Vegas is up against the cap limit. We know
Yeah.
Florida's up against the cap limit, and Minnesota can't be far behind after adding Hughes and
Well,
having to re-sign them
they have to
as
resign
well.
Hughes, is what I was going to say, and that's going to
So
suck up a lot of money. But it's just like demanding a trade and giving a limited list like that. First of all, talk about Darnell Nurse. I think he's living in La La Land. But when you look at Dylan Larkin, the captain of the team, to pull a move like that tells me one thing. His relationship with Steve Yzerman is as bad as a relationship between a captain and a GM could possibly be.
there's no question about it. No question. It's terrible.
They got to be on like non-speaking terms, right? Like you
No.
don't pull a move like that unless you are
Yeah.
absolutely you loathe the guy.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, and I don't love what Larkin's doing, but I would say that Detroit, and I know Yzerman, I love Yzerman, the way he played, he's a great player. Um, the ownership, it's hard, has to go to him and say, you got to step aside. We'll give you an advisory a role, a face of the franchise role, but they got to bring somebody in new. The Steve Yzerman plan isn't working. And now
Yeah.
the people you brought in are wanting to leave, right? That's a problem. And it's not easily fixed. They've got some great players on that team. They just don't fit well together,
Yeah.
right? So that's a problem. If you and as a GM, if you're not getting along with your captain, there's a problem there in the there's a there's just a problem in that franchise, and it's not going to go away easy until something changes, something big changes, and maybe Steve Yzerman has to change. And it's too
Yeah.
close to the draft now because we're less a week away, a week and a half away from the draft. So it's not going to happen now, but it should.
No, it won't. It won't. They'll trade Larkin at the draft, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, that'll be an interesting race to
Yeah.
see who gets him.
Yeah.
Um, Montreal could put an unbelievable package together for him.
Yeah. And you got to think
Um,
he should want to go to like he obviously Montreal wasn't on that original list, but you wonder will it be on the expanded list because he'd fit in like a glove on that team.
oh yeah. I
On that
mean,
second line center.
put him together with Demidov and Newhook. That is a
Oh,
fast and skilled line.
absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
and the assets that Montreal has between draft picks and prospects, they could put a real package together.
Yeah, you could
I
give the
would hope
package you
to
offered to Leafs for Nyes. You could offer them to offer them
right
to Detroit.
now. The only question is, from Montreal's perspective, you're coming into a contention window. Your oldest star is 27 years old, right? Um, and so, do you bring in a guy who's going to be 30?
No,
And like, is he a little bit older than the window? But if you manage to keep Michael Hage, not include him as part of the package going the other way, he's going to be playing another year at Michigan. He's, for all by all accounts, he's going to be a very good NHL center one day. Do you get Larkin, assuming he'll be your 2 seat for 3 years until Hage is truly ready?
Mhm.
And then you move Hage up, and then you've got Larkin for a couple more years. You drop him down to the 3 seat,
Well,
and you're still rocking and rolling.
yeah.
There's a
Well,
lot of
that's
options there.
yeah. I think that's one way of looking at it. But there's also a way of looking at it. I know Larkin hasn't won a Stanley Cup and he's not had success in Detroit in terms of playoffs because he hasn't got a chance to play in it. But he's experienced, right? And his experience on that team and leadership could help in that room. And I know I'm not taking anything away from Suzuki, and I don't mean giving him the C or anything like that. I just think another voice in the room of seniority of somebody that's been around the league for a while could be helpful in that room.
Yes
Take
and
some
no,
pressure off the
right?
young guys.
Yeah, yes and no. I agree with that aspect of it, but the voice of leadership, his leadership standing throughout the whole league is taking a hit by what he's doing
No,
now.
no question, no question, no
Um,
question.
but I would say that, look, there's a lot of teams that could use a Dylan Larkin. There are a lot of teams that'll probably make a push for him. The question is, when was the last time an American player, either as a free agent or as a trade target with this much leverage, accepted a trade or signed with a Canadian team?
We've not seen it. And according to some of the stuff you've seen on social media right now, Florida has put in a bid for him. Now, who's going back the other direction, right? Yeah, because Lundell right now is your second line center. What are you
You'd
going to?
probably have to start with Lundell, Bennett, and well, you can't say draft picks or prospects. They don't
They
have
don't have
any.
any. So,
That's got to be a hockey trade.
yeah, exactly. So, and if they got to wonder though, if they sign him and what's Dylan Larkin's cap hit? I can't remember what it is, but it's high.
Yeah.
It's 6.5, 7.5, something like that
No,
million
it's
or
more than
whatnot,
yeah, it's more
seven
than
or eight
that.
million
I
maybe.
think it's close to 8.
But then how do you keep Bobrovsky when you were already at the cap? You're gonna have to send somebody back that's got a high cap list, or you're not bringing Bobrovsky back because he wants 14, 15 million.
Oh, Larkin is at 8.7.
8.7. So you're almost 9 million. You're adding, you got to get rid of some serious salary to keep him, which would then pretty much close the book on keeping Bobrovsky. Although Florida seems to find a way to make these things work. I
Yeah,
don't
well,
know, but
what could really make that interesting, and I don't mean to like keep bringing Montreal into the conversation. Montreal is going to be looking for a new home for Sam Montembeault, and
yeah,
he's at 3.5 million. He's a
yeah,
cheap goalie, and
but
he might find his game.
yeah,
And
he's not a Stanley Cup final goaltender.
where do you think they got Montembeault from?
I hear
They
you.
signed him away from Florida.
I
Well, he
hear
was a
you.
waiver claim from Florida,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. I don't
but
think he's got.
he could facilitate. Like, that's a $6 million cap
Yeah,
swing
I
that
hear
could
you.
work for Florida.
I hear you.
Um,
I just
you
don't
know,
think then there are true. We've said this before, but look at Carolina just won with a rookie goaltender too, right? Although Freddie got them there. But I don't know. Sam Montembeault has improved himself to win in the big moments. So I just don't see them being interested in them because if you lose Bobrovsky, you got to bring in somebody with a little bit more panache, a little bit more
Yeah, but well, do you though? Because Bobrovsky
ability.
was not Bobrovsky this year.
He wasn't this year, but the two cup wins, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, but now he's pushing 40, right? Like,
Yeah, I hear you. I hear
but
you. I hear you. I hear you. How about Alex Tuck saying that he's going to test free agency? Now, is
I
that just a
look, I
ploy on Buffalo to get them to stand up and pay him, or do you think he's really going to test free agency? Are we going to see him sign before July 1st?
no, but
He's a
is it
hometown boy
is it
too. Keep in
crazy for me?
mind,
That's what I was just going to say. Is like, is it crazy for me to say that he's going to sign with Buffalo after July 1st?
we've never seen that happen, where a guy goes and says he's testing for agent and he stays.
I think we have. I can't remember who it might have been, but I just feel that he loves Buffalo. They love him there. He's a hometown kid. They just haven't come through. He needs to see who's willing to make a stupid offer for him. And that's going to present him with a choice. Because the teams that are going to offer him a chance to win are not going to offer him eight figures.
Well, if it was just about
Because
winning, he why wouldn't he stay where he is? Because they got a pretty
well,
darn good chance to win.
that's my point. But he's not going to make eight figures with a team that's in a position to win, right? He's going to make eight figures from a team who's willing to overpay to get a guy who's starting to come down from, the peak of his career. He's not gaining speed on the downslope yet, but he's
Mhm.
just starting to find the little momentum. And, if somebody gives him 10 million, it's because they're a Seattle or a team
Toronto
that or a Toronto that's just
might
looking to make a
throw money at him.
splash. Throw money, make a splash, get 30, add 30 goals to your team scoring totals for the year. And a good guy, a heavy guy as well.
Right. And
Now,
Toronto's not all that far from where he's from in Buffalo. So
yeah, but a team like Buffalo or well, Florida doesn't have the money to sign him, but
no.
or Minnesota that does have a little bit of space, could be saying, look, we can't afford to pay you 10, $11 million a year.
Yeah, I think he wants more
But
than that though. I think he was talking like 13, 14.
I mean, that's just ridiculous, right?
Right.
But they're not like if someone's willing, if he's willing to take, somewhere between 9 and 10 million bucks to play for a winner, I think Buffalo makes that deal,
Yeah.
right? But I think there are three other teams that make that deal. So in the end, just to recap and come back around to what I was saying is he will have to make a choice, and I think it'll have to be after July 1st, is do I take 11, $12 million or 10, 11, $12 million from a team that I really probably won't win with,
Mhm.
even though they're telling me that this is just the first step in a lot, in a big plan, we're going to be competitive in a year. Or does he take a little bit less money, something along the lines of what Buffalo's been asking, and he'll be a second line player in his early to mid 30s and finish his career up in his late 30s? Because he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to be playing the game effectively at 38, 39 years old.
Probably not. There's very few
Um,
guys that do.
very few guys. I think their names are Ovechkin and Crosby
Stahl
and
did a pretty good
Stahl
job.
and Stahl. But Stahl had 12 goals during the year. Like,
Yeah.
yes, he did a great job in the playoffs, but
But he's not an
um,
offensive guy the way Tuts is. They don't
yes, that
expect Stahl to
they
score
didn't even
30
expect.
goals.
Yeah, no, but you would hope he'd be a 19, 20 goal guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that aside, I want to talk more about Stahl, but he'll have to make that decision. He'll have to make that decision. And I think it's entirely possible that he ends up signing with Buffalo for less money than he was offered elsewhere. Because the money that he's offered elsewhere is just not the hockey experience he wants.
Yeah. We'll see. We're going to find
Yeah.
out in a couple of weeks.
Yep. Yep. So before we wrap up, because we're almost at the 40-minute mark here.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I want to just give people a little bit of an indication of where we're going from here since the season is over. We usually take a summer break, and This is going to be no different. But next week, Phil's going to be out of town, so we're going to record our episode a little bit late. We'll record it on Monday, and we are finally going to cover our thoughts and rankings of hockey-themed movies and television shows and why we love them or hate them. Then the week after that will be after the draft, and so there's going to be a lot of interesting draft picks about people who we barely know anything about. So we will be BSing you guys to no end about players that we've never watched play for 5 minutes.
Or maybe Gavin McKenna will be a Toronto Maple Leaf by that time.
Well, it sounds like he will be, but like again, we'll be talking about a player that we have not watched play for like 5 minutes. But there will also be a ton of trades. There are always some great trades. I think there are a lot of teams out there that are probably
could see a lot of trades in the week of the draft this year. I think even the night one of the draft, there'll be a ton of trades.
Yeah.
People trying to get in the top. They say the top 6 and probably the top 10 players in this draft are pretty good. So
pretty good. And a lot of them are defensemen in a league that's starting to prioritize a certain type of big, rangy, very mobile defenseman. Then the week after that will be the July 5th, which is 4 days, gives us 4 days of the free agent frenzy. And we'll see where people are signing and have commentary on that. And after that episode, we will sign off for the summer. Phil will be looking to get his handicap down. And I will be looking to get my handicap under 100.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, Phil, it's been a great hockey season. Congratulations one more time to the Carolina Hurricanes and to all the playoff teams.
So sorry to all you Knights fans out there, you Mitch Marner fans out there. Sorry, Sean. Thank you to the Carolina Hurricanes on behalf of Toronto Maple Leafs.
The entire city of Toronto.
See you next week, Ryan, on the Amy 5-Hole podcast. Have a good week,
Take care,
Ryan.
buddy.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.